Welcome to Beyond the Chutes, the rodeo podcast that dives deep into the heart of Western culture. I'm your host, Doug Simcox, and here we explore it all. Rodeo's rich history, the legends and their stories, today's competitors shaping the sport, and the behind-the-scenes heroes who make it happen. From bucking chutes to timed events, from rodeo history to current events, this is your all-access pass to the world of rodeo. Our show is presented by ParaSight Systems, who help vet clinics and animal owners experience the power of sight. New in 2025, ParaSight Systems all-in-one diagnostic analyzer, which offers 37 tests to help veterinary practices save time, money, and pets. You can find them at ParasightSystems.com. So welcome to Beyond the Chutes, is presented by ParaSight Systems. I'm your host, Doug Simcox. I'm sitting in Taylorsville, Kentucky today, and it is 20 degrees outside this January day. We still have some snow on the ground, but I'm hearing that it's supposed to be warming up here. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners that listen to our show. You know, we've got some great stories that's told by some great storytellers. And today we've got a very, very special guest coming on with us. Comes out of Wynnewood, Oklahoma, Mr. Wendell Ratchford. How are you today?
I'm very good, Doug. Very good.
Well, welcome to the show. Of course, we're going to learn a lot about Wendell here, owner of the Wild Horse Rodeo Productions rodeo company. But a couple things here, Wendell, if we could, and I'd like your feedback or like your input on as we do it, kind of a quick catch-up. A couple weeks ago, the PRCA First Frontier Circuit Finals were held in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Farm Show Arena down there, and Raymond Hotstetler, the 2018 International Professional Rodeo Association Saddle Bronc World Champion, come up through the Rawhide Rodeo Cowboy ranks. He wins both the second and the third go there and places second in the average. So congratulations to Raymond. And I tell you, Wendell, they had some competition down there.
Yeah, I seen some of it on the Cowboy Channel. It looked like a good rodeo.
You bet, you bet. And I don't know if you remember the four-time International Finals Rodeo qualifier, the big show from Bristow, the calf roper, Bradley Chance Hayes.
Yes.
He knocks him out in the first round, wins the first round. Of course, he was on BTC, episode number 111. We had an opportunity to learn about Bradley Chance Hayes. And last week, and this is the first time in a while, Wendell, where the PRCA First Frontier Circuit Finals and the IFR were on different weekends. So many times they're on the same weekend in January. But
right. There's always been a conflict.
Always been a conflict.
Yeah.
So this was the year that we had some cowboys show out that both competed, and cowgirls that both competed in the First Frontier Circuit and the International Professional Rodeo Association. So IFR 55 last week in Guthrie, Oklahoma, the great Lazy E Arena. Wendell, what did you make of the weekend?
Well, I was up there from Wednesday through Sunday. I serve on the board of directors still as the stock contractor board representative. So I go and make my presence there, but I don't really have a job there anymore. But it was an outstanding rodeo. The crowds was good. The rodeo went well, and everybody was really, really doing good. The payoff is up now to where it's not out of the question to win $10,000 or more in any event. Mm-hmm. So it's improving the rodeo business a whole lot.
Good. And I believe total payoff this year was about $500,000.
The added money was $500,000, and then some. And then I'm not sure what the entry fees were, but that would have been on top of the added money.
You bet. And so proud of what the IPRA and you and the Board of Governors are doing to boost that, and it needs to be out front and center. And I would agree. I watched the show on the Cowboy Channel, or the finals on the Cowboy Channel. and nice coverage. They did a great job. We had a couple cowboys kind of were represented there. Mr. BJ Prince, one of the original Rawhide Rodeo crew back, I think he started with Sam when he was 16 or 17 years old, now runs Rawhide Rodeo Canada. So BJ and his family, they had the Buck and Bull of the Year, 057 Smudge. So congratulations to them. And then we also had Eli Hirschberger, again, one of the members of that Rawhide Rodeo crew, several-time IFR qualifier, and the reigning 2024 Mid-States Rodeo Association all-around champion and saddle bronc riding champion. He was there, so we were cheering him on as he rode there this weekend. Shifting a little bit back to before the final starts, you have the old-timers reunion, Wendell.
Right. The old timers reunion is Friday during the rodeo. The rodeo started on Thursday.
Okay, yep.
The old timers reunion was Friday afternoon, so that gave the old timers a chance to come in for the reunion and stay for the rodeo. There was a good crowd there this year. Lots of people that you haven't seen for years, but then there's always those that passed away, and we didn't get to see them this year. Jerry Bellis as one of them, and the people that had been involved in the association for years.
You bet. And you bet. And I love that they're doing that. Did Red Dolphin start that? Isn't that his?
Red started that, and this is 20, I can't remember the exact number, but 20-something years that we've had the old timers. And Red, he was instrumental in starting it at the very beginning, and it's just carried on, and it's a nice gathering now.
You bet. And we're hoping to record with a bunch of these folks that show up at the old timers reunion. You know what we find, Wendell? There's so many great stories out there, and
oh yeah,
we got to capture them. It just feels like that's our main inspiration here, is getting these stories out and getting them told. And in addition, then, after the IFR wrapped up last weekend, this weekend, right on the heels of that, the American qualifier for our region, I think it's the Central region, at the Kentucky Horse Park, about an hour from here is all, in Lexington, Kentucky. And tomorrow during during Slack in the steer wrestling, Colt Swearingen's coming to town. And Sam Swearingen's going to come in, so we'll get an opportunity to see him. Sylvain Bourgeois, who's the general director of the rodeo, the Festival St. Tite, he's coming to town. So, and of course, on Friday, Saturday, I've got tickets. My wife and I are going to go. So we're going to be able to watch Slack on Thursday. I got 3 days of rodeo coming up, and it's about 50 minutes away from me here, Wendell.
Oh, well, that's good. You'll have a good reunion then.
Yeah, it'll be a reunion, and Raymond Hotstetler, who we talked about, he's qualified in, so we're gonna see how he does here this weekend. Talk to him. He felt good coming out of the finals, so he's on a roll. And then I wanna talk a little bit about you, if it's okay right now, Wendell.
Okay.
Wynnewood, Oklahoma. For our listeners, where is Wynnewood?
We're an hour south of Oklahoma City, right on Interstate 35. I live 1 mile off of Interstate 35 between the interstate and town. My original hometown was Davis, which is 7 miles south of Wynnewood, down in the foot of the Arbuckle Mountains. That's where I was raised and grew up till I left home and went to rodeoing, and then I never made it back.
Okay. You got close.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know that I've heard of the Arbuckle Mountains. How would you describe them? The
Arbuckle Mountains are their claim to fame is supposed to be that they're the oldest set of mountains in the United States. Now, I don't know how that is determined, but they're a very scenic, very popular place for tourists and what have you. There's an outstanding camp there, a park. It's called Turner Falls Resort Camp, and right there in the mountains got a big falls, and they the city of Davis actually owns the whole facility, and there's thousands of tourists come through there each year. It makes Davis a very, very lucrative independent place to be.
Okay. Okay. So grew up in the Arbuckle Mountains, foothills of the Arbuckle Mountains, south of Oklahoma City. Take us all the way back. Earliest memories, Wendell. Earliest memories.
Oh gosh,
Mm-hmm.
my parents, we lived in the same location there for their whole duration of their marriage, which was 50 something years. And my father originally started out with a riding stables there at the foot of the mountains, and had a trails, riding horse trails that went plumb up into the top of the mountains. If you took a 2-hour ride, you could go plumb to the top of the mountains and look at the Turner Falls on the other side. And probably my youngest memories of being involved in horses and that kind of stuff was I was a trail leader. I led the trail rides, and I was only 6 or 7 years old.
Oh my
And
goodness. Oh my
and
goodness.
at that time I didn't have a saddle, so I had to ride bareback. But we saddled 30 horses every day.
Wow.
for the rental part. But it was the start of our involvement in horses and rodeo, and they started bucking some bulls and some horses at a little arena we had there back in the 60s, and it evolved into the rodeo business, which my folks were in with my uncle. And they rodeoed probably from 1960 or 61 up to 66 or 67. And then they decided that they weren't making a living, so kind of dispersed of everything. And my dad, he loved bucking horses. He never got out of the bucking horse business his whole life. And but that was about the extent of what he done after that.
Yeah. And
He was
go ahead.
He was real instrumental in youth rodeo. They created a youth rodeo association that started back in the 70s. It was the Oklahoma Youth Rodeo Association, and that association is still going to this day. And from here to eastern Oklahoma, has a big following of kids. They give $50,000-$60,000 worth of awards and trophies and stuff to the kids every year. Have a finals, and he fathered that association, and as well as helping a lot of the FFA clubs in this area with youth rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
And we started out in the early 60s doing the FFA rodeo at Hugo, Oklahoma. And I've got a banner here in the hall of my house where they brought me when we done the 50th rodeo there for the FFA champ.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
So we done that rodeo for that FFA group for 52 years actually before I quit and retired.
52 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And let me ask a question. You 6 years old, trail leader. I don't want to blow by this for our listeners. You riding a horse? You riding a pony?
Well, no, I had a horse.
You had a horse.
I never owned a pony.
Okay.
I had small horses, but I rode a horse from the get-go.
6 years old, no saddle. And these are long trail rides, right? 2 hours up and 2 hours back?
Right. We had two sets of trail rides. One trail ride was for an hour. You'd be gone an actual hour,
Mm-hmm.
and he charged them $1 a head to ride the horse.
Oh, wow. Oh wow.
And but the trails was to where someone had to go to lead the trail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For them to not get lost up in the mountains and not get back.
Yeah.
But it was a good summertime job. So they would open Memorial Day and close Labor Day.
Okay.
And there was a real nice park there where we had the horses set up. had a big swimming pool, a real nice skating rink, and sometimes there in the 60s, the skating rink burnt down. And when it burnt down, it just kind of took away the fizz for the whole park itself.
Okay.
But that location has still got rock houses, rental houses up in the mountains there that you can't even see from the road area, that are built out of rocks right there from that location, that are outstanding, beautiful places, beautiful little houses. And that little village kind of place is still, very, very big, very good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well that's wonderful. When was the last time you were up there?
I come through there if I have to go to Ardmore, which is the next larger town to the south. Mm-hmm. Highway 77 goes from Davis down through the mountains and up over the mountain that way. There's some 15-mile-an-hour curves in that Highway 77 there.
Yeah.
Going up through there. But if I was just through there a couple of weeks ago. If I go to Ardmore for anything, I get off the Interstate 35 and come down through the mountains there, just out of curiosity to see how everything is. And there's lots of activity there still, church camps and first one thing another. It's a pretty nice resort area.
Well, that's an incredible story and what an experience. And I gotta believe, and we're going to talk about bull riding championships and all that sort of thing, but at 6 years old, riding without a saddle, you're developing a heck of a seat and a heck of a sense of balance.
I credit that a whole lot with my success riding bulls. Mm-hmm. was the amount of time that I spent on horseback when I was a little kid.
Okay. Yeah, up and down hills, and oh my goodness, that is just excellent. And your dad loved bucking horses. What did he look for in a bucking horse? And tell me about one or two that he might have had that were kind of standouts for him.
Well, we had an old buckskin horse that they pretty much started their business with, and he was a horse with one eye, and they called him Sam, and he would buck in a real short circle there, and at the very end turn back and spin. And he was a big thoroughbred kind of horse, real long-weathered, stout kind of horse. And he was very seldom rode. They didn't have the riggings to hang on to him, being he would just take it away from them. But he very, very tough horse. When he was 30 years old, I finally told Dad, I said, Dad, he can't eat no more. He's looking terrible. We're going to have to put him down. Mm-hmm. Dad said, well, I can't do it. Yeah. I said, well, I can't either, but I'll get the county commissioner to come down there, and I'll have the vet come, and we'll bury him right here in the arena. We had an arena there at the house, at the place where we lived.
Okay.
So I'll get it where we can bury him right here in the arena. Dad said, that'll be great. Oh, wow. So I got to hold Doug, and he's buried right there in the arena. And he was probably my dad's claim to fame. He loved that horse. And after that, he had a thoroughbred stud horse that I bought at Sulphur Horse Sale for a barrel racing prospect, give $100 for him. Brought him home, and my wife at that time tried to ride him, and he wasn't going to make no barrel horse. He was just too high strung. So my little brother, Dave, he wanted to ride bucking horses in, so he was going to just put his rigging on him and use him to practice on, just practice his spurring on him. Well, that didn't work out too good. He threw Dave off and went to bucking, and they went to bucking him in after that, and he was probably as good a bucking horse as there ever was. But 3 or 4 years after they started using him and bucking him, he got his foot hung up, back foot hung up at a cable fence, and just about took his leg off. And my dad wouldn't give up on him, so he doctored him for 3 or 4 years and got him back where he didn't have no open sores or nothing, and kept him to breed some mares with. And we raised, he started breeding some mares to him and raised several colts out of him. And he was probably the start of the horses that my dad had that went on to help me with my herd of horses after I started. It was good.
So
And
what year would this have been, Wendell?
that would have been in the early 70s.
Wow.
Is when this all took place.
And what was the name of this horse, the barrel horse that turned into a bucker?
Well, you'll have to give me a minute to think of his name, but Skip.
Skip.
We called him Skip. Yeah.
Okay. And
He,
Skip, it sounds like, and maybe you can fill us in on this. You know, we hear born to buck programs today. That's pretty common. But in the early 70s, I mean, were you looking to get or to throw good bucking horses? Is that what you were using Skip for?
this is true. My dad, he believed in the breeding program.
Okay.
And about I'm gonna say 68 or long about the time I first started rodeoing in IPRA. I had bought some bulls to try. You had to go to the sale barn and buy a bull and just try him.
Yeah.
And if he made it, you know, he was good. If he didn't, you just turned around and took him back. And I had worked from the time I was 14 years old at a truck stop there in Davis. And so I was able to buy some young bulls along and start, you know, messing with them. And about that time, I had a friend that was kin to the Kesslers in Montana. And I come up with two really nice young bulls. And Rick Jones was the boy's name. And he called Reg Kessler and told him that I had a couple of really nice bulls and wanted to know if I'd trade them for some mares. And he said, well, yeah, I'd be glad to. So anyway, we sent those bulls up there, and he sent me 4 mares that were all out of Reggie's best line of horses. And I can't remember the name of the stud at that time, but he was a pretty fabulous, famous NF4 type stud. So I got those 4 mares, and from them 4 mares, we started our breeding program with that stud and raised number of colts that I took on and started bucking.
Oh, wow.
When I started putting on the rodeos again up in the early 80s.
In the early 80s, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is 1968. So
yeah.
Are some of those bloodlines still around, Wendell?
Well, they're not really that you know of. I haven't had any horses now in 5 or 6 years. But yes, I had a couple of those Kessler mares, that Kessler bloodline still in my breeding program plumb up till I quit.
Oh, really? Okay.
And,
okay.
Those horses was fantastic horses.
And the 4 mares were buckers. Did you campaign them as well as breed them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We bucked them I bucked them when they was 7, 8 months bred. They would buck no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, we bucked them all the way as long as they was good.
You bet.
But
and your dad was in youth rodeo, right? Started the rodeo association and everything. And were you guys traveling very far at that point to put on rodeos?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Hugo was 100 miles from here, and that was about the farthest we went to do anything.
Yeah.
And back then, our trucking ability wasn't very good. I remember hauling everything we took to Hugo one year in a 16-foot stock trailer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4 or 5 trips.
Yeah.
To get it all down there.
And you talk about the highway that runs down along through the mountains, you know, the different hills or the different mountains you got to cross, and 15-mile-an-hour curves. Did you have to haul horses and stock up across that?
Well, they built the interstate through there in, I think it was 66 or 67.
Oh, okay.
When the Interstate 35 come through here. And before that, well, yes, you did. But after that, you didn't have to go down 77 highway. You could go down the Interstate 35. So it changed the whole face look of the trucking facility.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, I can
So
see that. Wow.
yeah, but
So 6 years of age, you're leading trail rides. When did you? And I mean, you talked about your little brother riding buck and bareback horses. When did you say, I want to try this? And what year would that have been? And what events were you working?
I started I started getting on the calves. My Along about this time, my dad started putting together some cows and started a breeding program. And so from the time he started raising bucking calves until I was 18 years old, I was the test monkey. for, for anytime we weaned a set of yearling baby calves, by the time they was 700 or 800 pounds, we started bucking them,
Okay.
and that was my job
Okay.
to get on the calves. And he started having 12 and under bull riding at the FFA rodeos back then, and I won the first buckle I ever won when I was 11 years old at Duncan at the FFA rodeo
Oh, wow.
in the 12 and under bull riding, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But that's about the time I started riding, little young bulls, 6, 7, 800 pound bulls. But we had those junior bull ridings at the FFA rodeos, and I mean it got to be a pretty big event. There would be 10 or 12 kids entered,
Okay. Okay.
in the
Okay.
bull riding,
Yeah.
and so I had plenty of exposure to the bull riding.
Okay. And do you still have
So
that buckle, Wendell?
no, I went through two or three different situations where I lost belt buckles, and
Oh,
I
that
I
can
lost
happen.
my world champion buckle
Oh,
back
oh,
back in the Longhorn days at Nashville, Tennessee. I left my dadgum belt and
oh,
belt buckle laying on the dash of a company pickup outside, and we were inside tearing the arena down, and someone stole my buckle off the dash of the pickup while I was in there working. And so I, I located it once in Nashville in a pawn shop, but by the time somebody got down there to get it for me, it was gone.
oh
Somebody
my
else had already
goodness.
got it.
Oh my
It
goodness.
left.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah.
Well, it still may
Uh,
show up somewhere, Wendell.
well, that's been a long, long time ago. Yeah.
No doubt. It's somewhere, I promise you. It's
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. And it was a Nelson Sylvia belt buckle,
Okay.
and the 1976 buckles were, and they were silver and gold. They were pure silver and pure gold.
Oh,
Outstanding
wow.
belt buckles.
Wow.
So Nelson Sylvia had a representative at the Old Timers
Yeah.
last week,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Wendy went up and visited with the man and had him to give her a price to rebuild that belt buckle.
Yeah.
So he had all the specs on them old buckles back in his catalogs and his history stuff.
Yeah.
And he looked back and he said, if I match that buckle exactly,
Yeah.
it will cost a little over $10,000
Holy
to build
cow.
it.
Holy cow.
She said, that's be all right. He'll do without it.
And
So,
did it have your name on it, Wendell?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
whoever's wearing Wendell's belt buckle, we hope you're enjoying it, and we hope you understand the value of this belt buckle.
Right. Yeah. But I don't expect it to ever turn up again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh
there's
my.
I figure they melted it down and made, salvaged it
They,
to some
they
extent.
they might have.
But
I hope not. I hope
anyway,
somebody's
yeah.
wearing it, and someday they're going to go. I've worn this long enough. I'm going to give this back.
Right. That would
So,
it'd be a false hope.
well, we'll just put a shout out to our listeners to
Yeah.
be looking for 1976 World Championship belt buckle. It's got Wendell Ratchford right on it, and
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful
So,
gold and silver buckle. So tell
right.
us. I don't want to move too fast past your first 11-year-old win. And you talked a little bit about that, but that was the first memorable "look what I can do" win.
Right. Right. And I went on, I mean, I just went on to the FFA rodeos, the youth rodeos, the junior bull ridings and stuff then, but I was obsessed with riding bulls.
Okay.
And I run around with some kids. They come from eastern Oklahoma and western Oklahoma and stayed at our house in the summertime and practice riding bulls from out by Lawton over by Duncan and that area. And there'd be 4 or 5 of them kids stay all summer with us, to ride bulls. And they were all older than me. So them kids was 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
So they were going to start to enter in the open rodeos, the bigger open rodeos. And so
you had some talent around you then.
Right. So we were at Cache, Oklahoma when I was 14, and Charlie Plummer, an old producer from out there, had rank bulls and mean bulls, and he was a brother-in-law to the Butlers. So anything he got that was outstanding, he sent it on to the Butlers.
Okay.
But he was producing a rodeo there. We got out there, and them boys said, "We decided just to enter you." Said we needed some more bull riders entered. There wasn't enough money here.
Oh wow.
I said, "Well, okay." Well, I brought a big black bull that weighed 1,800 pounds, and I was 14 years old. And I rode the starch out of him, and I was too scared to get off.
Right.
And won a couple of $100. Back then that was a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And so that was that. In my best memory, that's the first big money I ever won at a bigger rodeo, amateur rodeo.
Okay. And that would have been Wendell 14. That would have been 64. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
64.
$200 in 1964. That's probably worth $2,000 today.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Right.
And you was already set up though. You had the rope, you had the champs, you had the spurs at that point.
Oh yeah. I had everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A bareback rig and the whole. I mean, I was equipped. I was ready to go. But and I rode horses a lot back then too.
You did.
I
okay.
just as I got older, I just didn't excel at it as good as I did the bull riding, and it was just easier to work one event.
Okay.
And go on.
Yeah. Yeah. And barebacks just didn't hit you, just didn't fit you the way bull riding did?
Right. I was a one-footed bareback rider. I could ride real good with the right side, but the left side did not work.
Well, let's hope he then crowded the left fence and the judges could only see the right side, right?
Right. I just never developed the technique to do good.
Okay.
And evenly.
Yeah. And no rodeo schools back then.
No. Jim Shoulders had a rodeo school, but I never went to it.
Never went to it. Okay.
But, yeah.
So
my dad was probably my best instructor, and he could open gates for me. Anytime I wanted to get on it, there was times when I got 16 or 17 years old, I'd get on bulls before I went to school of a morning.
Really?
Come home that afternoon and get on. We had 6 or 7 bulls then, and I'd get on them all before I went to school, and then I'd come home and get on all of them again.
Wow.
And
wow.
But
and just saw yourself progressing. Just saw your again. I keep going back to that bareback riding at 6 years old. That to your point, that just had to make such a big difference. Right.
And we never had a bullfight or nothing. But then you learn to be self-preservation. You got a hold if you was in trouble, and you didn't get in the position to get in trouble. You got off.
Yeah.
So.
Live to fight another day.
Right.
And did that carry you through your career? Did you have that sense of self-preservation?
Yes.
Okay.
All the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
there was only one time in my whole life that I ever got hit in the face with a bull, by a bull, from jerking me down or something along that, and I had a bull stumble real hard with me one time.
I see.
And when he jumped up, he's a big black bull, and he did jerk me down. And I had my hand down, but it wasn't good enough to keep him from hitting me in the chin.
I see. So you was pushing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And in bull riding, I mean, injuries are the thing. And self-preservation goes a long ways to minimize those injuries so you can live to ride another day, like we said.
Yes, that's it.
You
Yeah,
got to be healthy and you got to be able to go down the road, right?
right.
Cache, Oklahoma, 14 years of age, win $200. What's next? When do you say time to go?
I had been to the youth rodeos and the little open rodeos until I was 17, and I actually bought my IPRA card when I was 17. I won the Rookie of the Year in January that I turned 18.
Okay, and that'd be
And
1968.
yeah,
Okay.
and I started going to the IPRA rodeos in this area, North Texas, and this area, Arkansas. And back then, I went mostly by myself. There were several kids around here that rode bulls, but none of them felt like they could ride good enough to go to them rodeos. And so I got along good at those rodeos the first couple of years. The majority of the rodeos I went to was the producers right here close, and then I went to Mr. Wing Rodeo, Mr. Gerald Smith in Texas. I liked his rodeos, and I went about every time he had a rodeo, and done real well at them rodeos. But that was pretty much how I got started. And once I won the Rookie of the Year, the next year I started at college, and I had always known Red Duffin and several of them guys around Ada. And they was all rodeoing then, and that's the first year I went to the Longhorn rodeos.
Oh, really?
It was in 69.
1969. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I didn't actually go to work for Bruce until 71.
okay.
I was still trying to go into college in 69 to 70, but that didn't work out too well.
Where were you going to school?
So I went to Murray State at Tishomingo.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Longhorn Rodeo, 1969. So Bruce was involved already with Loretta Lynn.
Yes.
Okay.
Bruce was the general manager for Loretta at all those rodeos then.
Okay. And a lot of building rodeos and Wanago and Wisconsin and all that.
Right. Yeah, they was pretty much all building rodeos. There was only one or two outdoor rodeos in the whole run. Wanago, the year before I went to Wanago was outdoors, and then the first year I went, they'd moved it indoors downtown Milwaukee to one of those big coliseums downtown.
So that would have been like in 1969?
Yeah, 69
Wow.
or 70.
They moved it into a building that early. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
go ahead.
they had several of those rodeos back then. He had Detroit then at the fairgrounds 3 times a year.
Oh, wow.
We went there in March or April. Then we went back in August, and then he went back in November.
Oh, wow.
So he had 3 rodeos a year there for 2 or 3 years in the State Fair Coliseum at Detroit.
Okay. And
it was a good rodeo every time. They always had people.
so big draws for both fans. You had big crowds coming in.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the Cowboys and the Cowgirls and what that looked like.
There was plenty of cowboys back then. One of those rodeos, well, Detroit would be a 7 or 8 performance rodeo, and there would be 12 or 14 bull riders out in every performance.
And
the
a
added money was
single go, typically?
Yeah, they're basically a single go-around rodeo.
Okay.
At Detroit, the last time I remember going to Detroit, well, no, I did. We went more than that, but in the fairgrounds in 71, I flew to Detroit from Atlanta. I done got married. Don and I was expecting Wendy, our first child, our only child.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Atlanta, where she was from, and for her to have the baby. And I flew to Detroit for the rodeo that fall. and one second the bull riding, it paid $900 and something.
Wow.
So I hitchhiked home with some different contestants. Anyway, I come home and went to the doctor and paid for Wendy with that rodeo.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
$900 to win second. So big.
Yeah.
I mean, these are crazy numbers back in 1971. I mean, these are
Right. It got pretty good then. Yeah.
And you were already then working for Bruce, 1971, you said.
I went to work I think the spring after that was in the fall, and the next spring I went to work for him at the rodeos pretty consistently.
Okay.
And then put a rig together to live in the next year, and just stayed on the road with them. But at that time we was having 23 or 24 rodeos. So we was pretty busy all spring and all fall both.
Oh, really? Okay. So not just the winter. Mm-hmm.
I never did come back to the ranch in Nashville and stay or anything. I always come on home. But for the most part, we stayed on the road during that time.
Okay. And were you able to, I know you competed at those rodeos, were you able to also get out and ride other rodeos as well? Was there time to do that?
No. I never left and went to any other rodeos during the time we were at the Longhorn rodeos.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the everything to do with the rodeo. I had a part in it. I set up the arena, fed the bulls, drove the truck, moved everything back and forth, and then helped put the rodeo on itself. So it was a full-time job.
You bet. You bet. And during all of this, I'm just going to go now to a little bit of what you accomplished in your career, and you can give us some feedback on this as we do it. You already mentioned winning the 1968 All-Around Rookie, and you competed in bull riding and won the majority of your money in the bull riding, and you were the bull riding Rookie of the Year, and you rode some bareback horses and calf roped and so forth, it sounded like. And then you qualify for IFR1. And to put that in perspective, IFR 55 just took place last weekend, Wendell.
Right. I have missed 2 of those rodeos, those finals, in 55 years. And those 2 years, we had moved the IFR to Oklahoma City, and Bruce booked a rodeo at Tulsa on the same dates as the finals, and it worked out real good for all the contestants that didn't make the finals.
Okay.
So for 2 years, I stayed at Tulsa and put on the rodeo, and had a boy go to Tulsa for me and take the stock.
To the finals.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was on up in the 90s or later.
Oh, it was. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, I've pretty much been there every year.
Okay. So in February 1971, IFR1, you finish up the year 5th in the bull riding. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. What do you remember about IFR1?
It was a pretty exciting event or rodeo to say the least, but I had never been hurt riding bulls. And I got on my second bull, and he was a little Hereford kind of bull, and he stumbled and fell with me when he turned back.
Okay.
And when he stumbled and fell with me, it jerked me out over the front end, and I was hung to him for a round or two.
Okay.
And when I finally got to my feet and got away, I just spun out away from the bull and was running, and the bullfighter was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
And we run together, and his knee broke my pelvic.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Leaving her, it cracked my pelvic for the up and down plumb through it.
Wow. So
I was laid up for 3 months getting well from that accident.
Wow.
So I didn't fare too well at IFR1.
Okay.
So anyway,
and laid up for 3 months. You're not working, right? You're laid
no.
up.
I was on the couch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So anyway,
Oh, wow.
I didn't come home. There was she wasn't then, but she ended up being my wife. She gathered me up and took me to Tahlequah, Oklahoma. She was living with 2 Indian girls over, and they all had jobs, and so they let me lay on the couch and took care of me for 3 months until I got where I could get back around and do things, start back to riding. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's the only time I was ever really crippled. Well, one more time in my whole life, I pulled a groin muscle, but that was the only bone I ever broke in my whole life.
And that's not a good bone to break. I mean, man,
No,
that's
no.
the core, right? That's the core.
Yeah.
And just looking here, IFR 1, you had 3 bullfighters there: Liesl Harris, Larry Minchie, and John Burris. Okay.
Yeah, Larry Minchie was the one that we run together, and he was an outstanding bullfighter.
Yeah.
But he was just spastic, and he was intent on getting me loose, and it just took a round for me to get loose, and when it did, we had a wreck.
Okay.
So,
all right. And I can't blow by the fact that Liesl Harris was there. Tell me about Liesl, some of your memories.
Liesl Harris, and he was a super friend of mine. He was one of the greatest bullfighters that ever lived. He didn't have to think to do anything. He would just naturally be there. And he ended up being probably the best performer or comedy person that there ever was. Mm-hmm. You could watch his act time and again, and they never got old. I mean, he was just outstanding. But Liesl Harris was one of the superstars in my whole rodeo career.
Okay. And during that time, back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, he's the president of the IPRA.
Right. He was the president of the IPRA, and stayed in the IPRA till on up in the later 70s, and he decided to go on, to the PRCA, and when he did, he was famous from then on.
You bet. PRCA Hall of Fame and all that. Hee Haw.
Yeah.
Couple movies. Yeah. I love talking about Liesl.
He was an outstanding drummer.
Yeah.
Guitar player. He could fit into a band anywhere he went in and sat down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he was just a great guy.
I have an autographed book that he autographed for me in 2018. This Ain't Your First Rodeo. It's still up there. It's still available on Amazon. You want to hear some stories? You're probably in the middle of it,
I haven't got that book, but I have read it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was pretty good.
So IFR 1, brand new rodeo, first time ever for the IPRA there, and at that time the IRA to have a finals. What do you remember about Tulsa? I mean, it's a big building, right? This is a big facility.
Tulsa was a job. It was to say the least. Mm-hmm. But the old fellow, his name was Leroy Malden. At that time, he was the vice president of the IPRA. But he run a ranch in Gainesville, Texas. And he steer wrestled when he was younger. He quit, but he would go to Tulsa and then put the arena and everything in. And there was a lot of times it was just a matter of building fence and what have you. But him and I were friends, and so I started helping him the first year he went up there to do the rodeo. And I went up there with him and stayed and helped him I put up everything, do all the stock and the whole deal, and still rode at the rodeo. But it was a good venue even back then. Mm-hmm. And the IPRA had its really ups and downs financially along those years.
Yep.
And there was lots of things come and went that probably shouldn't have, but people making the decisions wasn't always the ones that needed to be doing it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
and it's a big undertaking for an association to put on a finals. And
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Uh, and after the first year, the necessities for a rodeo, panels, gates, stuff like that, feed troughs, water tanks, we stored them at the Cooper Ranch north of Tulsa up there.
Mhm.
Bill Mills had a barn there that was able to put them in. So we had to haul everything back and forth, put it in, then come back after it was over, take them out, take them back up there and put them in storage. And it was a job.
Mhm.
So
You bet. And you're on the board and been on the board, the IRA, the IPRA for a long, long time. You know the financial exposure, right? You
oh
know
yeah,
what it costs. You talk about belt buckles, right? And belt buckles aren't getting cheaper, and they're still handing them out. But it always amazes me that an association, that doesn't put on rodeos throughout the course of the year can pull it all together and put on a nice finals the way they do.
well, it takes a lot of coordination, and the main thing is you got to have the right people.
Yeah.
You've got to have the people that are willing to put out the time and the effort and know what they're doing, and not waste no space or waste no money.
Right. Yeah. And so you went on a tear. You did 11 qualifications. 1976, you win the bull riding championship. So in January 1977, you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma again. And for our listeners, IFR 1, 2, and 3 were in Tulsa. And then IFR 4 moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right.
Okay. What do you remember about Albuquerque, if anything, Wendell?
Well, Albuquerque was just a so-so rodeo that they didn't get enough people to really justify being there. And I didn't have anything to do with the financial part of it or that part, the board or anything like that. I was still just a contestant.
Okay.
But they didn't have to have people like me to put the arena up and take it down and do the work like that at Albuquerque because it was an established arena.
Oh, it was. Okay.
It was already there. It
Okay.
was they saved a lot of expense in just that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the best I remember the rodeo was a good rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
I won the second or third round in the bull riding, and the added money was up to like $400 and something. I mean, it was up to where the round paid $400 and something. So it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah. So good paying rodeo. Yeah. Worth the
Yeah.
travel. And
Yeah.
a bit of travel, though. I mean, you're talking a pretty good run just to get out there.
Right. From here out there, it was 600 miles or so.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
uh,
And then
uh,
IFR 5, which would be January 1975, it came back and that got held in Tulsa. That year
Right.
you finished 7th. In 76, you finished 10th, still in Tulsa. And in January 1977, Tulsa, you finished number 1. 1976, IRA Bull Riding World Champion. Tell us about that season and that final.
Well, I had been married for 4 or 5 years until the year before that, and I had never really traveled hard and I'd been pretty limited on where I went, and like I say, I went to the Longhorn rodeos and stayed and worked, didn't go anywhere else, and didn't hardly go anywhere else during the off season from the Longhorn rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a divorce that winter. And when I went back to the Longhorn rodeos that spring, there was a good run of rodeos, and I drawed really good at that first set of rodeos, and I had over half of the money won that I won for the whole year won at the end of them 10 rodeos.
Oh, wow.
I just had an exceptional run. And so when the Longhorn rodeos was over, well, I got in the truck with Red and them, and I went to the rodeos. So I was able to maintain my lead and went to the finals and won the world. But before and after that, my other priorities didn't let me go and travel that hard.
Sure. And that
So,
makes sense. So,
but
so I mean, this is huge. Half the money you win in the season, you win in the first 10 rodeos of the year. So sets you
right,
up good financially, right? You're paying your bills.
yes,
And you jump in with Red Dolphin. Who else was, so you were part of the crew? You hauled with
right,
him full time?
yeah. For pretty much for that the, for most of that year, I didn't go away from just where Red went, and we had a hell of a crew. There was about four of us. Red and Ronnie Williams had just started really going, and had already won a world championship in the bobback riding. A boy that got killed in a truck accident some years later, his name was George Hammonds, and he still wrestled real well. And Glenn Bird had just retired. He didn't go with us that year. He went with Red down the years before that. But there was two or three more that went from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
and I went with that bunch most of that year.
Okay. And what effect did that have? I mean, it's a pretty professional crew you're jumping in with. These are winners, right?
Right.
Yeah. What effect did that have on you and your?
You always do better if you're with a winner. I don't care who you are. If you put yourself with someone that has the ability to do better than you do or do as good as you do, then give you the boost or the encouragement to do good, you'll do better.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
And Red, he was a bull rider.
Well, at that time he just kind of quit riding bulls and had started steer wrestling.
Okay.
And well, he'd already won the world in the steer wrestling a couple of times, and he'd won the all around once.
Okay.
And he won the bull riding once.
Okay.
But he finished his career just steer wrestling. He didn't ride bulls for the last 4 or 5 years that he rodeoed.
Yeah. But a built-in rodeo coach.
Oh yeah, yeah. He pulled my rope at them rodeos, and I went through a period there where I couldn't find a rope that I liked that I could hang on to, and finally got a Terry Langford in Franklin, Tennessee. Do you know Terry?
Yes.
Okay. Finally got Terry to build me a rope that was what I needed, and I still got that rope.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And some kids use it from time to time, and I didn't have to tell Red. Red pulled my rope every time, and like at IFR 8, the year I win the average, and I win that year, they had 9 rounds at the finals that year.
Oh, wow.
And that was a year that they went busted. The association did. They weren't able to pay any of us at the finals when it was over.
Okay, so couple things. Let me catch up with you here just a little bit. Okay, so the rope. You couldn't find a rope that fits you. What did Terry do? What did he build for you? How'd you figure that all out? That it just fit?
It was just the measurement in the handhold, the rawhide that he put in it that made it stiffer, and for some reason or other, I didn't even have to take a daddy with that rope. I could ride with that rope and just lay it across my hand and go. It was that good. And he built me more ropes after that, but never got a rope that was like that rope.
Really? Okay.
So,
okay. And you still got that rope?
Yes. Well, I think I do. My kids, my grandkids have had it and used it. My kids used it.
Oh, neat.
But anyway, it was. I've had the pull strap replaced on it 3 or 4 times, or it would wear out. But it was just an exception.
Okay. So 1977, January, you show up in Tulsa, and it's the first year that it went to 10 rounds.
9 rounds, yeah.
9 rounds, okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Bruce Lurkey, he had been responsible for a lot of rodeos up to that point, a lot of the finals, but he didn't. No?
He had only done 1 or 2.
Oh, he had. Okay.
About the second or third year that they went busted, they hired Bruce to promote the finals.
Okay. Okay.
And I hate to be biased,
Yeah.
but Bruce had the association turned around. They made money, and everything was on the up and going good. And the board looked at the whole situation, and they said, if Bruce will work, he done all of his work for them on a percentage,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so they paid him a large sum of money for for that rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
And the consensus of the board was, well, if Bruce can do this, we can too, and there's no sense in us paying this money.
Oh, wow.
And they fired him.
Oh, wow.
And the next year they went busted again.
Oh, my goodness. And when you go ahead.
They just didn't have the promotion ability to do what he done.
And that's really what he brought to it. Not only the organization of the rodeo, right? The show organization, but also the promotion, getting people into the seats.
Right. So that was his specialty. He was the best promoter probably that ever maybe lived as far as rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the greats that have been in the rodeo business, in the PRCA, anybody, have been associated with Bruce or come to his schools and clinics,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they started.
Yeah. And they went from 6 rounds in 76, IFR 6, Tulsa, 6 rounds to 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did they ever try to get Bruce back?
No, he wouldn't come back.
He wouldn't come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He told him one time was all that he was going to do his deal, and he'd never come back after that. Now he helped him.
Yeah.
He was in the business and he helped him.
Yeah.
But he didn't put the time and everything into it to promote the rodeo like he did then.
Okay. And it took them a while to dig back out then. I mean, they lost.
Yes.
There was a lot of money lost.
Yes. And a lot of times whenever at that IFR 8 in the bull riding, I think the rounds paid $400 and something.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the rodeo, I won $3,200 or $3,300 at the whole finals, and I had worked at the finals, so I had a paycheck. I had 2 paychecks coming, and when I left the finals, they gave me $500.
Now this is IFR 8 the following year.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And
IFR 8's the year they went busted.
Okay. So won 3,200. You worked through the whole thing, and you got $500, and that was the end of that. That was what you got.
That was it. Well, the association eventually paid everybody.
Did they? So you ultimately
Yes.
got your money?
Well, the way they done it is from then on, I never had to pay for my IPRA card. I just had a running log, and if for any reason I owed the association money, they just deducted it off that account.
I see.
So I just gradually worked it out, or got it, $110 or $15, $20 at a time each year.
Yeah.
So
And
they was able to pay the majority of them off that way.
okay. And takes a lot of money to make up that lost money, right? I mean,
Right.
When you're trying to do it via, the IFRs and weather that time of the year, competing events,
Yeah, that was the majority of the problem right there, the weather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it come a snowstorm in Tulsa. It was terrible.
Yeah. So IFR 9, that's your 9th qualifier, and that same year at the finals in Tulsa, January 1979, you win the bull riding average.
Well, IFR 8's when I win the bull riding average.
Oh, 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
8's when I win the average.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And after that, I slowed down and just started going to most of the Longhorn rodeos, and working for Bruce at the rodeos and staying there. And I had got a divorce, and I was pretty reckless. I made lots of money and didn't have anything to show for it except a good time.
Okay. Okay. So
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
when when I got ready to quit, it was in 1980. It was the last year that I worked full time for Bruce back then, and we were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The last rodeo was in April, and I met him for lunch, and I said, Bruce, I'm not going to be able to come back this fall. I'm going to go home and put me a business together. I'm 30 years old, and I own my reading bag and my suitcase, and that's all I have. And I said, I can't go on like this. I've got to make a change. He said, well, are you going to start putting on some rodeos? I said, well, hopefully. I said, I've got some stock gathered up, a few bulls, and my dad had the horses. So I said, yeah, I'm going to work in that direction. He said, well, maybe you can come back in a few years and just take my business over.
Okay.
I said, well,
Okay.
we'll talk about that. That'll be a possibility.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I never really lost touch with Longhorn Rodeo through that 10 years. I went a couple of times and took a truck and a pot and truck farm and worked. And then I went several times I went and judged the rodeos. And so I pretty much, I stayed involved.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I done the finals, the stock superintendent at the finals during all those years.
Oh, you
And
did? Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And what does the stock superintendent do? We haven't interviewed one of those yet.
Well, you have to receive the stock, take care of the feeding and the sorting, and actually put the rodeo on from the back end. You know, as far as handling the stock, I would hire about 8 guys to go help me, and we done everything up to the performances, everything during the performances, you know, pertaining to the production part of the actual mechanics of it, and then stay the week after we tear it all down, put it all up, and and get it ready for the next time. But it is a pretty demanding job. But
yeah.
I was the stock superintendent from like 78. So, long about the time that they went broke, I started doing the stock superintendent.
I see.
The IPRA office was still in Pauls Valley at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Chuck Smith was the owner and publisher of Rodeo News, and him and I were really good friends. I worked for him a lot when I was home, helped him a lot, and he said, "Wendell, you got to stay in there." He said, "We got to have the help."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, and I did, and it was good.
Wow. Very cool. And so you say to Bruce, I got to move on. Got to put something together. When did you start Wild Horse Rodeo Productions or Wild Horse Rodeo Company? When did you start that, Wendell?
I come home in 1980, and I got married in 2 years. Started putting on some miniature rodeos, and of course, I had some bulls and I had some horses, and then I'd already was doing a couple of FFA rodeos, the ones my dad had, and so pretty much all through the 80s there, I just developed my business and built a herd and a rodeo deal, and then in 1989, Bruce called and he said, "Are you ready to go back to work back here?" They pretty much had busted him on the livestock end of the rodeo business. He had 2 son-in-laws that had tried to run his business, and one other person, and it was all a disaster. He just never could keep it together.
Yeah.
So he called and I said, "Well, yeah, I think I can handle it. I'll have to do a bunch of doing this and doing that and other, things that wasn't according to Hoyle."
Mm-hmm.
But he came out and we sat down and went over the whole thing, decided how we were going to do it, shook hands, and I never had a contract with him after that. And I worked for him for 20 more years.
Really?
And
okay.
We met once a year, went over our business, decided what we was going to do different or what we was going to change, if anything, or add to it, and put together the openings and stuff for the rodeo. He done all that. He just said there was times I had to get stuff done to be involved, and we were good from then on.
And you took over as the stock contractor at that point, Wendell?
Yeah.
Okay.
In 1989 was the first year that I took the stock to his rodeo. He had sold his bull herd to Tony Sharp in Mississippi, and Tony was with a agreement that Tony would furnish him bulls for his rodeos. So he had a bull man, and he still had a set of horses of his own. So I had the advantage of having their horses and mine together.
Okay.
So I put them all together, and then put all the bulls together. Hired Tony to bring one truck and haul a load of stock, and Tony started bringing 12 bulls a week to the rodeos in his truck, and then I brought the rest, and we went from there. And Tony helped me for 10 years with a truck and bulls. Him and I had ended up partnering on some bulls, and we had a good business together for a long time.
And operating out of Wynnewood?
Yeah, we'd leave here. Anytime we had a rodeo, we'd leave here, truck to Nashville, stop, regroup, load, reload, and then go on and stay. But we never come home once we went on the road. Even if we had a week off, we would lay over somewhere, at a place and just maintain. And then at the end of the run, we'd come home. Okay. So we were gone 8 to 10, 12 weeks every spring and every fall.
Wow. And in that run, of course, you got weather, you got all kinds of things going on. And you've already said, you're responsible for moving cattle around, bulls and horses, equipment too, or no?
We rented most of our equipment to set up and carry down with them. We had a semi-load of equipment. And we used that same equipment every week.
Okay.
We trucked it with us. We loaded it and unloaded it, set it up, took it down. We had it down to a science. We could set that arena up in 4 to 5 hours, take it down in 4 or 5 hours, and have it on the truck and be on the road.
Okay. So how many trucks did you have going down the road between you and Tony? How many trucks?
At that time, we had 3 semis hauling stock and 1 gooseneck hauling saddle horses. And then we had another gooseneck of Bruce's hauling the white horses. And Wendy took care of them for several years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we had the truck that pulled the chutes. It was just a trailer load of equipment. But usually Bruce would lease a truck to put. It was his then. The equipment was.
Yep.
And he would just lease a truck, and I'd put a driver in it and pull the equipment from rodeo to rodeo. So we actually had four semis and 2 goosenecks.
And these are out 8 to 12 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we would leave and not be home.
Okay.
So I lived a long time out of a suitcase.
I was going to say, now one thing our listeners actually love, are the travel stories. And you got to have, you've got a crew. How big of a crew was laying over with you at any given point in time, Wendell?
I didn't have anywhere from 4 to 6 guys.
Okay.
Wendy and Stacy, her husband, was with me all the time. Yeah. And that we pretty well maintained with that crew.
Okay. So stories, I hear tell, I don't know if this is true. I hear tell that you're a bit of a prankster, kind of a practical joke player. Anything come to mind?
Well, not serious. There was times when I would do things that, especially the boys that I liked, and the people that were involved in the rodeo. we had two bullfighters at one time, or one clown and one bullfighter, and they partied pretty heavy, and they'd have to sleep in real hard of a morning, and so I think we were in Philadelphia. I can't remember, but we were in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they were asleep, and they wouldn't get out of that trailer till noon every day. And so I took the forklift and eased around, and I thought, how funny would it be to raise them up off the ground a little bit? So I got that forklift and got under it and had the boys put some blocks under the axles, and we had them about 2 foot in the air when we quit blocking them up. Whenever they come out of that trailer that morning, they both had a wreck. Now, it was a mess.
And they didn't know they'd been lifted. They didn't feel it.
They had no idea. I never woke them up.
Okay.
And so, anyway, I done that to Red and them one time in Washington, D.C., but I didn't raise their camper or the trailer up. I just raised their camper up and blocked the axles under it where they couldn't drive it. If I put it in gear, and it sat there and spun. And that got me in trouble.
Yeah,
But
did it?
anyway,
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but
So any parades you might, I mean, Longhorn had stuff going on all the time. I hear stories of parades and all that.
The Milwaukee parade was the greatest of all times, and it was a bona fide get drunk is all it was. I mean, there would be 50,000 people in that parade, and the people marching in that parade would have a drink and their instrument, and riding their horse with a bag full of beer in it, what have you.
Yeah.
And that parade come right down through downtown Milwaukee, and there would be people up in the balconies of them buildings, and they'd throw them boys beer, out of the balcony. It was just a wild parade. And this was back when Lenore Rowe and Jeannie Bellis and Bobby Rowe and them was still pretty much in charge of the rodeos. I was just a hired in.
Yeah.
And we had took the rodeo truck downtown to watch the parade, and we were sitting on the back of it and had chairs sitting up on the back of the soul flatbed truck, sitting there, and we was all having a drink. And here come the end of the parade, and there's a half a dozen midgets dressed up in different costumes. There was a rabbit, there was bears, all kinds of animals.
Yeah.
And Lenore, she said, Wendell, I got to have one of them animals. She said, them are the most valuable, the beautifulest thing I'd ever seen. I said, well, no, that ain't no problem. I just jumped off the truck, went out there and caught one of them. and he was having a fit.
Yeah.
Well, I carried him over and set him up on the back of the truck and didn't hold him just for a minute, but them girls petted him and loved on him and told him how pretty he was and this, that, and the other. And we turned him loose.
Yeah.
And he went back to the parade, but about 2 blocks down the street was the end of the parade, and that was at the gate going into the fairgrounds. Well, when he got to there, the Laws was there, and he did have a fit on him. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
The parade was over, so I back out in the truck, and I'm just idling along down there behind it, and I turn into the parking lot, and they're sitting there waiting on me.
The police.
And, yeah, the police are. They get me out and take me to jail for public drunk.
Are you kidding me? Oh, my goodness.
And, we get to the jail, and I was pretty well intoxicated, but I could function. And the two officers that was in charge of me, by that time, it had got to be just a comedy for them. It was funny. But they put me in a holding cell till I could see a judge. Well, that was a while. And when some of my people finally got there to get me, was a girl I was seeing from down in Illinois and her friend, and they had rode in the parade, and both of them had on those real tight LeMay tops. And I had the keys to the pickup in my pocket, and their clothes was in the pickup. So here they was trying to get where they could get clothes to get out of these LeMay stuff. And so they come down there to get me, and they finally let me out. but I had to be back there the next morning at 9 o'clock to see the judge.
See the judge. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was pretty nervous at that time because they explained to me when we got there, and that public drunk is usually 90 days at the P farm up there.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
it's not a simple deal.
Yeah.
I said, oh shit, what am I going to do?
Hard to rodeo when you're sitting in jail, Wendell.
Yeah. So anyway, the next morning, the two officers that had arrested me, they come down there and talked to the judge and testified on my behalf.
Oh, wow.
That,
Okay.
That I wasn't doing no more, hadn't hurt nobody. I was just having a good time. And there was 250,000 people there, and all of them was drunker than I was. So anyway, he ended up finding me $300 and let me go.
Okay, which is still a big bunch of money, but no complaint from the from the fella you picked up?
No,
okay.
No, he was done. They got him attended to, and he was okay.
He was okay.
And I never seen or heard from him anymore after that. But,
okay.
Lenore, that was Lenore Rowe. Her husband was in charge of the rodeos at that time.
Bobby,
he was doing my job, Bobby Rowe.
Okay.
And Lenore was the most professional person you ever was around in the rodeo business. But if she got drinking a little bit of wine, she got to be a very comical, very outgoing person. She was great.
Okay.
So anyway. That was the only time I was ever in jail in my life or ever in close. So.
Oh wow! So do you have any pictures of when the young man was sitting on the back of the truck, dressed up as an animal, being petted by who'd you say, Jeannie Bellis and Lenore Rowe? Do you have any?
No. Nobody was smart enough then to take a picture. We just had to relive the situation.
You know, and that's come up time or two. You know, if we'd only had a picture or had a phone with us.
But we didn't even have phones back then.
No,
so that was in the 70s. Their phones wasn't even a thing. Nobody had ever heard of a phone.
Yeah, and when we really stop and think of it, it's probably a pretty good thing you didn't have a picture of some of this stuff.
Yeah, pretty good idea. Yeah.
So back in those days, you're 100% with Longhorn, taking care of stock. It's your deal. Are you putting on any rodeos outside of Longhorn?
I did some open rodeos and some little. I had been doing some open rodeos and stuff. When I started doing the Longhorn rodeos, it's when I changed my rodeo business to Wild Horse Rodeo.
Oh, okay.
In 1989.
1989. Okay.
I already had my card, but I changed my card to Wild Horse Rodeo as a producer. And once I did that, then I come home and booked some rodeos here around home. Mm-hmm. For 20-something years, I've done Paul's Valleys and Winnie Woods and Stratford's, Hinton. I've done 4 or 5 of those rodeos in the summertime.
Okay.
But I never pushed my business here and done a lot of rodeos. To do a lot of rodeos.
Okay.
I always had a hay baling business and a hay hauling business, and hay has been my backup for all these years.
Oh, it has. Okay.
And that's still what I do. I bale a lot of hay. I bale hay for the public, mm-hmm. and sell quite a bit of hay.
Okay.
And so in the summertime we would come home and bale hay and get enough hay put up to take care of all of our stuff through the winter and what have you. Okay. So because of it, I never really pushed to do a lot of rodeos.
Well, with the way Bruce was set up in his schedule, man, that's kind of perfect for you when you think about it.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, we stayed home from April till September, and we only went to Milwaukee in June. That's the only rodeo we had that was out of them dates.
Okay.
And so it worked out real good.
Nice.
So,
and looking through some of the stats, you had 5 times you had the bareback bronc of the year, and You had one horse that won it 4 times, a bronc called, bareback called Heaven Can Wait. Won it in 2001, 2, 3, and 7. And 7. Branded number 080.
Yes.
Tell me about that bronc.
That horse had an outstanding career, and the way that she went to the NFR 2 years in 01 and 02. And then them same years, she was the horse of the year in the IPRA. But what I would do, I would take her to the Longhorn rodeos, and then when I come home in the spring, I would send her to Sammy Andrews and let him buck her at his rodeos during the summer. Well, she just had to have 5 or 6 outs at each association to make the NFR and the IFR. So she would do good there, and then she'd go to the NFR. And the year that in 2002, she was the bareback horse of the year in the IPRA. She went to the NFR that year, and it paid $5,000 in for a horse and each animal to go to the NFR. And it was $1,000 bonus if you won the go around on them.
Oh, wow. So
they win 2 go arounds on her at the NFR, plus the $5,000 for the stock farm, stock fee. So in December she made $7,000.
Holy cow!
She come home to go to the IPRA finals in January, and she was the bareback horse of the year, which was a $2,500 bonus. She was a bareback horse of the finals, which was $1,500. So that was another $4,000. So she made about $8,000 there. Plus we win a Sundowner trailer that year for being the bareback horse of the year. So she was pretty exceptional.
I'll say. Good.
She
golly.
was a mare that she come out of North Dakota, and it's a long story. I don't really have time to tell you the whole story, but there was a little Indian man up there that had some horses, and I got acquainted with him through an old fellow that had brought horses to the IFR, or he hadn't brought horses. He had a horse stolen up there and it was brought to the IFR, and he come down there and repossessed her.
Oh.
With the sheriff.
Oh.
And this old man didn't even have nothing but a car. And so he come around and I got to visiting with him, and he said, I need to find someone that'll take care of this horse for me till I get arrangements made to get her back to North Dakota. I said, well, that ain't no problem. I can take her home with me if you want me to. We got to visit with this old man, and he said, do you have bucking horses? I said, yeah. He said, do you need bucking horses? I said, yeah, we always need bucking horses. He said, I got some bucking horses up in North Dakota. I said, well, just fill me in.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, as it worked out, the next summer I went up there and visited his friend that took care of had all of his horses up there on the reservation, and looked at the horses, and that went over, figured out what was what and what they didn't have, and this the boy that owns the rodeo company out of Michigan is sold.
J Bar J.
Jim's in J Bar J.
Yep.
The boy that owns J Bar J now, Sparky Dreesen.
Yep.
He had bought some bucking horses from an old PRCA contractor up there, and they were all NFR mares, and he bought one stud, Red Lizard, and didn't have a place to keep them. So he come over there to Joe's at the reservation and made arrangements with Joe to leave his horses there. And Joe said, I don't want no money. I just want half the colts.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow. Okay.
Joe said, when I got up at Joe, he said, I'm going to have 5 of these colts every year. He said, if you want to take them down there and make bucking horses out of them, he said, I don't need them.
Okay.
He said, I just want to make sure they get a good place to go.
Yeah.
So Odd 80 was in the first set of colts that come out up there.
Okay.
And she was out of an old NFR mare, and that Red Lizard horse stud. Both of them had been to the NFR. The mare was named Crow Woman. She was famous up there in that country. So I brought Heaven Can Wait home when she was a baby, right off her mama, and raised her. First time I bucked her, she was 3 years old, and you can see right then that she had a future. I mean, to be, a future.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, over the years, I brought 6 or 7 or 8 of them colts out up there every year for about 4 years, and then I ended up with more horses than I needed, so I quit doing it. But some of the best horses I ever had come out of that set of horses.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
From up there.
Okay.
And
what a great story. I mean, I'm looking at everything you're talking about. First off, a super breeding program, right, was put together.
yes,
And Joe sounds like he had it going on, had the sense to say, "Yeah, I'll take half the colts. Don't pay me
Right.
rent. I'll take half the colts."
right. At that time, Joe was a little old, simple Sioux Indian guy,
Mhm.
and he had 300 mama cows at that time,
Holy cow.
and had 10,000 acres of that reservation land leased. And he would run different sets of horses for different ranches up there on that ranch, and he'd have 20 or 30 registered mares over here of one breed, 20 or 30 of another breed, a stud with them, and once or twice a year they'd ever get close to being close to each other. They never mixed.
Huh.
They never had problems in no way like that. But he was a pretty good horseman.
Wow. Okay. And do you know if anybody's ever done what you did? Same year, 2 years in a row. Let's take a horse to the NFR and the same horse to the IFR.
No, that's the only time that as far as I know that's ever been done. And we would have done it continuously from then on, but at that time they had a rule that you had to own an animal if you sent him to the NFR, and he had to wear your brand.
Oh, wow.
Well, half of my horses had Sammy's brand on them.
Yeah.
And we never traded no money. I just took his horses in the wintertime, and he took mine in the summertime.
Okay.
And when it was all over and said and done with, the PRCA board passed a rule that stopped us.
Wow.
They figured out that I owned that mare and that Sammy was just using her, and they passed the rules, so we couldn't do it.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they got serious about it. So
Yeah.
we had to quit playing that game. We didn't get to do it but 2 years there, and then they figured out that she come back. Well, she got too much publicity is what it amounted to, coming back to the IFR.
Okay.
From the NFR.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
as long as it was summertime and was just bucking them here and bucking them there, there wasn't much ever said. But when they started to go to them finals and showing up at both places and they doing good on them, well, it bit us in the butt.
Yeah. So man, you had a lot of things that just fell into pretty good order. Hay baling and Longhorn Rodeo allowed you to do that. And when you didn't have a lot going on, you could take your broncs to Sammy Andrews.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I said, that wasn't a paying deal.
Yeah.
But still, I took his horses in the wintertime and stouted my herd with them. And so it worked out real good for both of us.
Yeah.
And
now he could still campaign her and your broncs. He just couldn't take them to the finals.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, he could take them horses as long as we put his brand on them. He could use them at them rodeos.
I see.
But it wasn't to none to our advantage if we couldn't send them to the finals.
Okay.
To where you actually got some bonus money.
And did you ever breed Heaven Can Wait 080?
Yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah. I had I have 4 colts out of her. Yeah, 3 or 4 colts out of her. And all of them done well, except and I never really got to know the last colt really looked like it was going to be outstanding. And when I retired, I sent her and 4 more mares out to Heath Stewart at Frontier Rodeo, and kind of told him the same thing. I just want some colts back someday to Heath. Well, that's been 5 or 6 years ago, and I ain't never needed no colts, so they're all still out there.
So
But
so your bloodline's
yeah,
out there. That is
yeah,
excellent.
Heaven Can Wait's last colt was out there, and Butch Heath's dad, Butch Stewart, he called me that summer. And he said, "Well, something's wrong with this mare." He sent her to Stillwater, and they ain't figured out what's the matter with her. But anyway, we lost her.
Oh
She
wow.
died.
Oh wow.
So
Okay. Okay.
she just had some kind of physical disorder that something killed her. But
Okay. So,
anyway,
and you say Butch Stewart, was he then with Frontier Rodeo at that time?
well, Butch has always been with Frontier Rodeo.
Yeah. Okay.
He's Heath's dad, and Heath runs
Yes.
Frontier Rodeo,
Yes.
and
Yes.
has since the very beginning.
Yes.
Jerry and Heath started Frontier Rodeo together. Jerry was the money man, and Heath done the work.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
they have a great business,
You bet. You
And
bet.
the last time I asked Butch about it, he said, "Wendell, there's 10,000 acres of land out here that I take care of or look after, and there's 700 head of horses.
Golly.
I don't always know which is which."
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, "Never mind, it's
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
So
I'll
anyway,
be darned. I'll be darned.
yeah,
Well, she had quite a career with you to win it 3 years in a row, 01, 02, 03, and then come back 4 years later in 2007 and be the Bucking Horse of the Year again. That's a pretty
right,
impressive career.
yeah. She was just outstanding. And in the middle of that, well, there had been a couple of horses come along that Jim Fusey
Yep.
owned one of
Yep.
them
Yep.
that was just as outstanding. And so, it wasn't a problem that she didn't win it. It was just that, I'm pretty much in favor of spreading the glory around
You bet.
if
Well,
someone's deserving.
you bet, and you're right. I'm looking at the stats here. 2004, 2005, Fancy Free, bronc number 295 of the Wagon Wheel Company, and
Right,
then
that's the horse that took her place.
yeah, and then my partner on the podcast, Sam Swearingen, his bronc, Bad Company, Rawhide Rodeo. Bad Company wins it in 2006, and then you come back and put her back on top of everything in 2007.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I didn't sell her or anything. I wouldn't sell her.
Yeah.
But Fancy Free won it 2 years ago in a row, and she was outstanding. Until the last couple of years, she has still bucked in the PRCA finals. But
Oh, she has. Okay.
yeah, Fusey sold her to the rodeo company there in East Texas.
Oh.
I can't say his name right now, but he sold out to Steve Smith.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
And that mare, she was good for a long, long time.
Huh. That's yeah. It's funny how stuff gets around like that.
Yeah.
How much trading there actually is or support. A lot of these PRC stock contractors and IPRA stock contractors depend on each other.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that interaction goes on now.
Okay. And then in 97, so a few years before that, you had Saddle Bronc of the Year, Classy Lassie.
Right. She was a half sister to Heaven Can Wait.
She was. So she come out of North Dakota.
Yep. She come out of the same set of horses up there.
Okay.
And then I had another mare that come from a farm boy over in North Carolina named David Purvis that had chicken farms. And he just messed with some horses, and he sold me that mare, PO1, and she was a bareback horse of the year that year.
Oh, wow.
And she was just an outstanding, real honest horse. And them bareback riders, there wasn't a lot of difficulty to her, but she was good. They loved her. I mean, they actually just loved to draw her.
Okay.
So, and Classy Lassie was just a honest, real honest bronc, but she throwed off 50% of the guys that got on her.
Okay.
Just overpowered them.
And Ravishing Ruby, PO1, the horse you just talked about, where did she come from?
She come from North Carolina from a chicken farmer over there named David Purvis.
Okay. Okay.
That was how come the P on her. Purvis was his name.
I see.
Yeah. And he just liked to mess with horses and bulls both, and didn't never intend on doing anything other than just trading them to somebody. So I traded him out of 3 or 4 of them horses over the years. It was good, and that he had raised over there.
Okay.
And probably 3 or 4 bulls. I had one bull from him that was outstanding. But he just, when I was over there in those rodeos, he liked to come to the rodeos and hang out and drink beer and have a good time. And that was the extent of his rodeo business.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
He was chicken farmer.
Well, actually, he was basically a hog farmer mostly.
Okay.
And then hog farmer and chicken and turkey farmer.
Okay.
And they had a large business over there in the farming business. And and still do, I guess. I hadn't talked to him in 4 or 5 years, but he pretty much got out of the horse and bull business.
Okay. Okay.
So,
and here's one to our listeners for the record books. In 1997, you had PO1, Ravishing Ruby. That was the bareback bronc of the year. In 1997, same year, you had 103 Classy Lassie, the saddle bronc of the year. And in 1997, you had a bull branded number 45, Indian Summer. So the trifecta, Wendell. In 1997, you picked up 3 belt buckles for bucking stock of the year.
Yes. The only other person that's ever done that was Jim Fusey, and he done it back in the early 70s.
Okay.
He had 3, all 3 of them in 1 year, I think. I'm not sure what year it was, but I'm pretty sure Jim was the only one that ever had a Triple Crown winner.
Wow.
And we were just fortunate that year. Everything fell together for us. And
where did you get Indian Summer, the bull?
Indian Summer was a big paint bull that come from South Louisiana, and Tony Sharp and I were partners on him at the time. We bought him from a little amateur producer down there, and he weighed about 1,200 pounds and was 4 or 5 years old. And Tony brought him over and bucked him. I said, Tony, let's buy that bull. I said, he'll be outstanding. I said, all he needs is groceries. And Tony said, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, Tony took him home and went to feed him, and then I brought him out here and went to feed him, and within a year he was weighing 1,800. Well, then we started sending him to the PBRs.
Oh, wow.
He was a short round bull at the PBR for 2 years or 3 years there.
Okay.
And then the year that he won Bucking Bull of the Year, we had sent him to Madison Square Garden to the PBR the first week of January, and then he come back to the IFR, and they had not got any shavings from to stand on or sleep on up there to Madison Square Garden, and them bulls come home so sore that they couldn't even walk.
Oh.
And I didn't go with them. We just sent Tony's boy with them.
Yeah.
And when he come to the IFR, he was terrible crippled. So not crippled, but sore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we bucked him the first time at the IFR, and I took him out of the draw. I wouldn't let him buck him no more.
Okay.
But that kind of messed up his claim to fame in the IPRA. But then we never sent him back to. He was permanently hurt. We never sent him back to the PBRs after that.
Isn't that crazy?
And,
wow.
The next year, I sold him to a boy over in Tennessee for a breeding bull, and we didn't buck him no more. And he had him over about 2 months, and there was 3 bulls got to fighting him and knocked him off the tank down into the tank and drowned him.
Oh my!
So,
oh my!
I had got a set of calves out of him out here before I sent him over.
Yeah.
And they never got a set of calves out of him over there.
Okay.
But I had kept 5 heifers out of him, and 2 of them was producers outstanding for several years. And then the best one was, probably 4 or 5 years old, and she had a calf that was really outstanding. And I sent him to some boys over there to North Carolina to the fraternities, and he won everything there was to win up and down the East Coast there. And so I ended up selling him to them boys over there. I mean, I can't remember who it was. But then Tom Teague ended up with him. And the next year, Tom Teague called out here and said, "Have you got the mama for that calf?" And I said, "Yeah, I got the mama for him. And she's got a baby, a bull calf on her right now." And he said, "I want to buy her." I said, "Well, that cat cost a lot of money." And he said, "Money's not an object. How much do you want for her?"
Yeah.
So I just kind of shot him a number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
22,500. He said. He said, "The money will be in the bank in an hour."
Wow.
And it was.
Oh, wow.
And they sent a truck picture.
Nice.
So we never know. She never got a chance to do anything else famous.
Okay.
But the other two cows that I had out of him was outstanding cows for several years.
Okay.
And that was all I had was two.
Okay.
But
wow. Wow. I'm going to tell you what, Wendell, we have covered a lot of ground today, and this has been just absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent.
I have enjoyed it, Doug, to say the least.
And some memories rocking and rolling up there. And I hope so, because
Right.
we're going to, I'm going to come back. We're going to have more conversations, okay?
Okay. I didn't know I could recall all of the things we talked about.
Oh,
And sometimes I can't.
I understand. Well,
sometimes names just elude me.
You bet. Well, you did good. Golly, you did good.
Anyway.
So some quick questions here for you, okay? Just first thing comes in your head, all right? So right now, what belt buckle are you wearing?
My butt got too little for my britches, so I wore a pair of suspenders, and I don't even wear a belt.
Now, when you went to the IFR, you didn't have a belt on?
No, I just wore suspenders.
Okay, so
I don't. I've got several belt buckles. All 80s buckles, the one I wear if I ever wore a belt for funerals and stuff like that.
Okay, I was going to say, you got one. What is it?
All Hevington Waits buckle. One of her buckles.
Oh,
is
okay,
one that
Bucking Stock of the Year buckle. Nice.
Bucking Horse of the Year.
Nice.
Yeah, her buckle is one every year.
Okay.
I've got a shelf full of buckles that them horses and bulls have won.
Okay.
Over the years.
I'll bet.
Yeah, that's the one that I've got on my belt.
That is so neat. That is so neat.
Yeah.
And then, okay, here's a question. You've done so many rodeos, so many different venues, so many different locations. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite rodeo venue or location, and why does it stand out to you?
Well, I guess all in all, Auburn Hills, Michigan was such a unique venue to do a rodeo in, and the production and everything had to be so precise that I really I enjoyed this being able to leave there and know I'd done good, to say that for the most part. You know, that building seats 18,000 people. They would sell it out on Sunday afternoon, have 17 or 18,000 there Saturday night. And when you get a play before crowds like that, it's something.
Yeah.
It does something for you. But
Auburn Hills.
All in all, I imagine Auburn Hills was probably my favorite one. If not that, Columbus, Ohio was right behind it. Columbus, Ohio at the fairgrounds was outstanding rodeo for years and years.
Yeah. Columbus. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Another question. Who in the rodeo world would you most like to have dinner with, dead or alive? Now, just let it roll here. And what would you want to ask them?
Well, one of my most favorite people would probably be Steve Gander. And I started helping him promote his rodeos when I was still riding bulls. I'd done some bull riding commercials for him. I actually got on some bulls for commercials for him back there in the 70s. And he's an outstanding individual, but he's probably one of the smartest men I've ever visited with. And I love picking his mind and just visiting with him. He's great. But and I've seen him a couple of times in the last while.
Yeah.
Last year at the NFR was the last time I got to see him.
Okay.
But he's just he's authentic. That's the main thing.
Authentic. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And if your rodeo career, if your life, let me even expand it a little bit. If your life were made into a movie, who would play you and what would the title be?
I have no idea because I'm not familiar with one radio or TV or movie actor in the whole world.
You can go back to when you was growing up movie actors. I'm okay.
Yeah. I really.
What would the title be?
I don't know. Wild Horse Rodeo, I guess.
Okay.
You got me on that one.
Okay.
I am not a movie buff of no kind.
Okay.
I watch very little TV except for the news and the weather.
Okay.
And the rodeos now. I started watching the rodeos.
There you go. And there's a lot of good rodeos on right now. Cowboy Channel and everything. Man, you can see them all. All right.
Yeah.
Final question of the day. I think.
Okay.
If only I known then what I know now, what advice would you give on this great life that you've led?
Well, the best advice I can tell you is hard work always pays off, and honesty. I've never made a dime being dishonest, and if you treat people the way you want to be treated, it'll all come around. And I have had so much good fortune in my life. So many people helped me that was only because I helped them or I was honest with them or done good things with them. And that's what motivates me every day.
Wow. Excellent. And the world needs more of that right now. So excellent.
A bunch. Yes, sir.
Okay. Final questions. Anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
Oh, no. You've been pretty thorough. Pretty thorough, Doug. Yeah, to say the least.
All right.
Yeah, I've talked about things I never dreamed that I'd think about, but it's all come back to me.
This is excellent.
So,
and more to come. More conversations coming.
Very good.
Okay?
Yeah. Just anytime, just give me a call back and we'll go from there.
I have appreciated this, Wendell, so much. This is neat, and I learned so much, and that's the beauty of being able to do this. I get to meet so many good people and hear so many great stories, and you've told a great story today.
Keep your notes; you'll enjoy it.
I've got notes.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Be safe.
Very good talking to you.
Yes, sir. Great talking to you. And as I said, more to come.
Okay. Just give me a call anytime.
Okay.
We'll be more than happy.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of our podcast with Wendell Ratchford, 1976 IRA bull riding world champion, rodeo stock contractor, and the owner of the Wild Horse Rodeo Productions. If you do, please share it with your friends. Word of mouth is always the best advertising. To make your listening easier, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow. Subscribe, and you'll be notified when new episodes come out. While you are there, rate us, give us comments, let us hear from you. And if you like reels, Facebook Reels, we've got them. Check out our Beyond the Chutes Facebook page and click follow. Our show is presented by ParaSight Systems, who help vet clinics and animal owners experience the power of sight. ParaSight's All-in-One is a revolutionary system that provides veterinarians with rapid, in-office visual and digital analysis for a variety of sample types, including blood, fecal, mucus, and more. And we've got that mail-in coupon for testing of your horses, dogs, and cats. BTC 023 for 50% off your mail-in testing. You can find them at ParaSight, SIGHT, system.com. And I want to send out a great big thank you to the IRA Project Facebook group for all their help and guidance. Tim Sparks, Marlon Harris, have really helped us connect with the rodeo greats of the International Professional Rodeo Association. And I want to dedicate this episode to Mr. Tom Wadridge, known as Tom Woods, one of the great rodeo photographers of the IRA. This is Beyond the Chutes Rodeo Podcast. Until next time, my name is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.